Today, I'm absolutely delighted to welcome Brydie Lear, VP of People Analytics and Insights at Expedia, to the Digital HR Leaders podcast. Brydie, welcome to the show. We've known each other for a long time, so I'm particularly looking forward to this conversation. But before we get started, could you give a brief introduction to yourself and your journey through the world of people analytics?
Thanks, David. I mean, firstly, I'm so excited to be here, finally, having this conversation with you. So thanks for the invitation. I started my career in HR, working mostly in international learning and development, talent management roles. And about 15 years ago, I had the opportunity to jump into a newly formed people analytics team. I'd become a little bit frustrated, to be honest, with our struggles to quantify impact in HR. So I really saw this as an opportunity to future-proof both my skills and that of the HR function. And I didn't expect to discover my professional kind of passion, but that's really where I landed. And since then, I've led people analytics across three very different industries. Firstly, I built the capability out from scratch in ING, a European headquartered bank. And then I scaled and built readiness for transformation at GlaxoSmithKline, an English headquartered pharmaceutical. And that was ahead of a really large kind of consumer health spin-off. And now I'm at Expedia, based out of the US, leading the people analytics strategy, AI planning, and PMO functions, which is really cool because now I get to formulate the right questions as well as try to answer them. But I just really love the entrepreneurial nature of people analytics and how we can use data to solve really big business problems, because, at the end of the day, we're not really just counting things, but we're using the data to reshape how we work and help organizations be both, smarter, but also more human.
And it's great. I mean, let's dive in a little bit to your career, because 3 industries, 3 different companies, 3 countries, different countries as well, and 3 different headquartered countries. It's so really interesting. You've obviously got a different perspective on those companies and those industries. I wonder, what are the differences that you've observed in the way each of these industries approaches people analytics?
Yeah, I mean, we've just learned a lot over the past 10 to 15 years about what works well in people analytics. And that's also constantly evolving together with the nature of work and technology. But on reflection, a couple of things, industry type and employee footprint have shaped kind of the way we approach and have an impact on analytics more than I realized. So firstly, in terms of industry type, banking is really risk and compliance first. So trust is key, especially post-financial crisis. So the numbers must be airtight, credible, as this is, the very nature of their business. So in banking, you really build trust through consistency and transparency. And that's really how you should apply it in people analytics as well. But the industry is also accustomed to making bets on probabilities. That's the nature of the markets and kind of most likely outcomes. So predictive insights were very quickly trusted and welcome, which means we had a lot of early impact using kind of predictive analytics and designing more scalable, complex products. Pharmaceutical, on the other hand, is a really science-led culture. So the analytical appetite is really high, but it's also about being precise and research-backed. White papers and research reports are really how to get leadership attention and action. And similar to science, hypothesis-driven work and conducting behavioral experiments type outcomes brought the most scalable impact. They had behavioral science teams, for example, in the people team. So now I'm in tech, travel tech, and e-commerce. I mean, it's really experience-led. We're really creating travel memories and experiences. So we're very good at understanding traveler and partner needs. And we apply the same principles to employees. So employee voice and the experience is really front and center into everything we do to improve those business outcomes and innovation. Tech is really fast. It's agile. It's data native. So insights really need to land fast in the flow of work and lead directly to kind of actionable outcomes. So the second thing I mentioned is the employee footprint. So that's really about, the type of employees and work that they're doing. For example, in pharma, you have a really diverse employee base, globally located, from scientists to sales reps to manufacturing workers. So that's really about making sure that insights meet people where they are, and that they can really access and give feedback in that way. In tech, it's a more homogenous employee base, which makes it simpler in some ways, with almost half our organization in tech roles doing work online, knowledge-driven. So tech employees and leaders really expect autonomy, simplicity, and in-the-moment kind of insights that really are about enabling their own productivity and innovation in that way. So, being thoughtful in your approach brings greater impact when it comes to this. I always have a playbook. Everybody has a playbook, but it's always adapted to the business mission, employee segments, data maturity, and kind of those decision rhythms and preferences in the organization.
No, it's really interesting actually, because obviously one of the sort of barometers of success that we've seen at Insight 222 in the research we do is, the ability of the people analytics function to identify and focus on the key business priorities of the organization that they're serving. And I think you've given a clear description there of how you obviously have identified that both in the finance banking sector you worked in, then pharma, and then in obviously the travel tech as well, because as you said, the aims of the companies are slightly different in terms of the customer bases and the composition of the employee base as well. So it's an important aspect of being successful at people analytics, isn't it? That you learn the business. I don't know what guidance you'd maybe give to those listening that are maybe earlier in their people analytics careers about maybe some of the tactics that you took to get to understand the individual businesses that you've worked in.
Yeah, so you really have to listen. Really talk to leaders. Really being deliberate about your stakeholders, who are your partners, who are your frontline leaders that are going to give you the insights about business priorities and where to focus. Listen, truly listen, because I think you also heard me describe the way you drive influence and drive decision-making differs based on the kind of culture of the organization and the nature of the way they do business. So, and then, I also try to keep analysts very close to the business, not only HR, but embedded in the business, because, the best ideas and solutions come from the business themselves in terms of the insights they need or things they need to understand and act on.
And obviously that's a key skill for a people analytics leader to really understand the business that they're working in. And you've been a people analytics leader for a number of years. I think we've both been in the field at least over 10. Let's keep it polite for both of us, particularly to me. But over 10 years, and obviously the field has evolved over that time, but the role of the people analytics leader has evolved over that time as well. Be interested in your observations on how you see that the role has evolved, and maybe you can talk to, obviously at Expedia, you're not just responsible for people analytics, you're responsible for a number of other areas which lend themselves well to data analytics as well.
So quite frankly, there's still too many versions of where the function sits and is therefore expected to drive as outcomes. I've reported into talent, the COO, talent or rewards. I always end up reporting to the CHRO, but there's really different expectations based on where you're sitting in the organization. So firstly, what hasn't changed in people analytics leadership role is those business leader skills, business understanding, ability to influence, storytelling, stakeholder fluency. These are really core skills in any business leadership role, but particularly in people analytics. And then the second kind of aspect is data skills. I'm always emphasizing, people analytics leaders are business and HR leaders, but we are very specifically also data analytics leaders. So data skills are, still front and center and important, and we'll have even more pressure on them as we go forward with new forms of technologies. So, this is also about really strong translation skills. So how can you take really complex topics like machine learning, data models, governance, organization network analysis, and how can you make that feel practical and ethical and human so that leaders feel very confident in making these decisions. So all these skills kind of lead to that ability. On the other hand, what has changed? Well, a lot. I won't talk about how mature we are, and more recently than ever before. And I probably would have answered this differently even just 12 months ago. But what's been evolving kind of slowly and now more rapidly is it's not just about analytics anymore. It's about understanding the employee experience. It's about, strategic value, about determining strategy, driving business outcomes and investments, and looking around corners. And I think that's what is most evident in the role that I now have, where you have the data to turn into insights, you have the insights to turn into strategy, and then you have the ability and the PMO to execute and plan and deliver on the strategy and measure that. So, after 15 years in this field, I'm not so one to really play into the latest hype. We all remember blockchain in banking, and we've been dealing with the new technologies in AI for a long time. But Gen AI and agentic AI are truly game changers for the world of work and employee motivation and behaviors. And people, analytics leaders now need to be able to spot those use cases, manage risk, shape workflows in completely new ways and faster than ever before, but still with the same emphasis on ethics and trust and those responsibilities that we've always had. So going forward, I think it's really going to be about being the bridge between data, people, and strategy, not just the dashboard creators, and lifting from an HR and employee focus to more of an enterprise and organization focus. And I think that's really also about systems thinking. I think these developments will come across the people team, but especially for people analytics leaders. And really the best analytics leaders of today and tomorrow, they won't just be interpreting the data, which is what we're doing now. They'll really be shaping the transformation across the organization. I don't know if we want to stick to buzzwords, David, but it's kind of really about shifting our focus from big data to big bets. That's kind of, taking risks and making choices. That's really the shift that we're currently in as leaders.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, certainly from the research that we do at Insight 222, and even prior to that, when Jonathan and I were at IBM, we've seen people analytics move from the periphery to the core. And obviously, I think your journey is a perfect example of that. Now that you're at people, you've got people strategy, you've reported into the CHRO at some time in all the companies that you've worked for. When we first did our people analytics trends research at Insight 222 back in 2020, only 13% of people analytics leaders reported into the CHRO. Last year, it was 22%. I expect that trend to continue upwards. And obviously, you've had a front row seat into how chief people officers engage with people analytics. So what I'd be interested in, Brydie, is maybe number one advice for people analytics leaders on how do you get to report to the chief people officer if you don't already do so, and what are the advantages of doing so? So one, from a people analytics perspective, and then second, what advice would you offer to a chief people officer who wants to take their analytics capability to the next level, other than getting the head of people analytics reporting into them?
Yeah, so I mean, I think about influence a lot because that's front and center of making sure that you're a trusted partner, and therefore go from building reports and generating reports to really having a seat at the table and shaping business strategy and insights in that respect. And so influence isn't about data dumps or presenting the right slide or the killer kind of point that you're trying to make from the data. It's really about being invited to co-create the strategy and solution. And you earn that by listening, by asking the right questions and being deeply relevant. And how do you be relevant? You understand their goals, their pain points, and their timing. Timing is everything. I once shared a beautiful 20-page deck with a new CHRO, basically a pitch book showing how smart we are, both about the business, the workforce, and the employees, thinking that was very helpful. She just pushed it aside and started kind of sketching out on a whiteboard what she really wanted to know. So it was the right move, yes, but at the right time. No, it was not the right time for that specifically. So influence also means flexibility and kind of adapting to how leaders think, and not just how you present to them. And actually, great analytics leaders don't just present; they co-create. So my overall aim, and I always encourage this in my teams as well, is to be a partner in the progress and the outcomes, not just a source of data and good mathematical skills. And if you start thinking that way, then you really start to build those trusted partnerships. Because as analytics leaders, we're good at taking the data and turning those into insights. So it's really about how you influence and how you show up. But it really just starts at the top. Chief people officers who are data and tech savvy and curious and continuous learners really set the tone for the organization. The very best chief people officers I know invest in their own data and tech fluency and then embed that firmly in the way they make decisions. And that trickles down throughout the organization in terms of expectations. So my first piece of advice to CHROs is don't delegate it to your teams, or to your leaders, or to your analytics team. If you want a data-driven, AI-savvy HR function, it really starts with you. And then second, and this is my continuous plea, please stop treating analytics like a reporting function. It should be your decision engine. It's, you really need to insist on predictive, like helping look around corners and actionable insights that link directly to the business priorities, not just kind of backward-looking dashboards. And I sometimes still get surprised that that's still how we sometimes think about analytics functions, despite all this strategic investment and new technologies. So that requires chief people officers to really start asking the right questions. And the right questions, hot tip, isn't just about what is driving attrition or engagement. It's really about, what's driving this type of business outcome that you're trying to achieve. And then third, hire a partner in your people analytics leader and make them central to your strategy and decision-making. Don't tuck them down in operations and expect them to provide insights that are helping you form strategy and deliver business outcomes. And with Gen AI, and agentic AI, the game is different. It's not just about managing disruption anymore. It's using it to accelerate progress. And chief people officers are uniquely positioned to re-architect the organization. So the way we do work and the experience of employees using these technologies. So these skills and putting them at the forefront of your organization is really important. Mary Meeker's kind of seminal AI trends report just dropped in May, 340 odd pages. It's a fascinating read. And there's a whole section in there on AI and work evolution. And there's a quote in there from the NVIDIA co-founder. And they said, well, immediately it's unquestionable. You will not lose your job to AI, but you will absolutely lose your job to someone who knows how to use AI. And this is the case for all leaders, including chief people officers.
Yeah, it's really good observation. It's like, as you said, the ability and the desire of the chief people officer to upskill themselves and to basically act as a role model to the rest of the function is really important. Again, that's borne out in the research that we've done at Insight 222. And we've been saying that about analytics for quite a long time, and it applies equally, if not more so, even to AI, doesn't it? And as you said, the head of people analytics, or even if they've got a bigger role like you with strategy and other things as well, it's almost like having your internal strategy consultant sitting with you at the table to help you war game stuff together, and as you said, co-create how HR can create more business impact and help solve some of the big business challenges that you've got, but also perhaps to reinvent how we deliver HR as well. It's an exciting time, if a slightly challenging time, I think as well. let's take that influence topic that you've talked about, because it's a really important topic. Again, without going banging on too much, sorry, listeners, about our research at Insight 222, one of the 8 characteristics that we've seen in A teams in people analytics, these are the teams that are having the most impact on a consistent basis, is that ability to influence. But it goes beyond the chief people officer that we've been speaking about, Brydie, and as I know, as you've done, it goes beyond that to other members of the C-level and business leaders as well. What have you learned about building that influence across the C-suite and in senior business leaders?
Yeah, I don't think it's any different to what I shared about influence in general. It's really about understanding their drivers, listening very carefully. I always encourage my people analytics partners to really be very deliberate and thoughtful about who do they need to build trusted relationships to partner in finance or in tech or in other functions that are partners in that respect, and who do they need to really build relationships to understand business priorities, etc. And I do that at the most senior levels as well. That starts with the chief people officer. The chief people officer trusts you, then the doors are much easier to open to the rest of the C-suite. But then again, everybody and their roles and their personal preferences as leaders will have different ways in which you need to present the insights or ask the questions. So it's really about making sure that you are a partner in that respect, and not just a deliverer of data, and making sure it's all correct.
No, it's really good. And you talked about people analytics partners. So this is, again, maybe for the benefit of listeners, this is like a consulting front end, is it, of your team that are engaging directly with the right people in the business, possibly working with or without, together with HR business partners. Is that how it works? Can you talk a little bit to that?
Yeah, definitely. We call them partners because they really are partners. Their role is to really understand business needs, really translate that towards analytical insights or research or products or metrics or whatever is needed to drive the decision, and then make sure that the decision is and action is happening on the other end. They also do a lot of education, data literacy, but they're mostly there to spot opportunities and translate that into actionable insights.
Now, again, for those listening, again, one of the things that we've seen with successful people analytics teams, those A teams, is they invest in 3 key skills. They invest in other skills, but they invest in 3 key skills: data science, behavioral science, but also consultants as well. Now, there's other skills, and particularly increasingly, we're seeing skills like product management, user experience coming into these functions as well. So let's turn it to where you are, the work you're doing now at Expedia, Brydie. What are the big questions that you and the team are exploring right now?
Yeah, so in line with all the developments that I talked about, top of mind for us at the moment is how can employees do meaningful work faster, at the right speed. So how can we really look at the friction points in decision making, leadership clarity and org design, ways of working, and what are the signals we can identify to help us to remove those obstacles to productivity and outcomes in that respect. And then how do we also build workforce resilience? So these are questions that are way beyond employee engagement, but the rapid tech change, particularly in our business, and geopolitical instability means where we really need to help teams to upskill, rewire, and really stay adaptive as the outlook evolves. So we're just really trying to understand how work gets done, so we can ensure we stay ahead of the curve in equipping our teams and leaders to stay ahead of these developments. And these are much more complex questions and require different data sets about work and how employees collaborate and make decisions linked together with productivity and business outcomes. So data. So it's a lot more kind of that enterprise level kind of focus in terms of the data sets, so that we can really understand, what's getting in the way of people doing good work, and innovating and staying well and resilient.
And that's so important, isn't it? As work is changing because of AI and other technologies coming in. And also, if we think about what's happening on the outside of the organization or any organization, some of the geopolitical tensions, the economic uncertainties in different parts of the world, the expectations that employees have about having consumer-based experiences at work and everything else. There's so much changing at the moment, and it's not just the way we work is changing, and we probably, you or me aren't going to look into our crystal balls and predict what's going to happen in the next sort of 12 months. But the way we work will change over the next 12, 24, 36 months because of technology. So the research that you're doing is absolutely critical, really, to the organization, or for any organization to be understanding that, isn't it? And I guess that's where all the various pieces of your role come together, including the AI strategy piece that you've got as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I read something recently that said we're moving from the great resignation to the great reimagination, because this is really about, understanding indeed the different ways that work gets done, but also employee preferences and fears and motivations, because having the best technology doesn't help you stay ahead of disruption. It's really about understanding where the market is going to go, and that's how we need to think in terms of talent, and making sure that we equip our employees for a future that looks quite different to now.
Everything has to be great, doesn't it? The great,
yeah, great.
We could put, we'll leave that to others to talk about. But and obviously, Expedia is a digital first business. I know it reasonably well from my time in travel technology, which was a long time ago. But I remember Expedia was a powerful organisation and making a huge amount of growth then as well. So Expedia generates a massive amount of data, both within the organisation and obviously with the customers that you work with. How do you plan to tap into that digital footprint to assess organizational effectiveness and some of the topics that you've just spoken to?
Yeah, so in people analytics, we've always had a lot of kind of survey and demographic data about employees, but that just kind of tells us who they are and what they say. And I think now, using O&A and workplace data and working with partners like Workalytics, we can get insight into how work happens and flows, and how employees make decisions and collaborate, but also protecting our employees' privacy, and without accessing any of the content of their work. And that is like extremely advantageous in a tech company, because all the work is done in tools that we can derive data from. So these data sets from the tools we collaborate and do work in, combined with business performance or customer data, can really help us identify those early signals that we need to understand where the employee experience or productivity stalls. So identifying things like collaboration overload, or understanding, decision velocity, or spotting where our policies like hybrid work or new technologies or processes are kind of enabling or blocking progress of our employees. So that just gives us this richer, high volume data sets to work with. So that's kind of our responsibility in a tech company as people analytics teams, to really turn that into, actionable insights that improve productivity or engagement, which then turns into positive business outcomes.
Yeah, and as you said, some of the topics that you were talking about, removing friction, which, let's be honest, frustrates every employee in every company in the world in order to try and get things done. Understanding ways of working and how they impact positively or negatively on performance, on engagement, on productivity. Helping people build resilience. These are things that every employee wants. So, and that's the great thing about looking at some of the O&A and the data, because at the end of the day, you're looking at an aggregate level anyway, aren't you? And you can actually really make employees' lives better by some of the insights that you get from this. And you can also support the organization, obviously, as you said, because it connects to things like productivity and performance and, helping you understand the right org design and everything else. if you think back to the start of when your people analytics career, we didn't have access to tools like this, did we?
No, we didn't. And I sometimes think of it like in people analytics, it's the equivalent of switching from kind of still photos and trying to get insight from those to live video. I mean, this is, really big data sets that really, when we have the ability to process them and turn them into kind of aggregate insights and combine it with business data, because of course it only has value when it's combined with kind of productivity or other business outcomes, and deliver that back to the teams themselves to make decisions in the context. That's really where you start to get kind of scalable, actionable insights on how to improve productivity outcomes.
And it's back to what you said earlier, having the right questions and then applying and doing, and then, analyzing the right data, collecting the right data, using the right tools to help you to do that, rather than starting with the tools. And I think if anything held O&A back, maybe before the pandemic, it was that I'd hear people at conferences saying, I want to do O&A. Well, why? Whereas you've got clear things that you're trying to understand, and improve for employees and the organization. And I don't know if you want to talk to that, because I think a lot of people I see in people analytics, or actually, frankly, in HR, they get caught up with the latest hype, and they want to do it because they feel that they're missing out by not doing it. But what they don't necessarily think about, well, how can we use this for the challenges that we're trying to work on? How do you sometimes help others see that that's the goal that you're trying to get to, not to use the latest tool or fad?
Well, you start with the business question. I mean, the question was, how can we, compared to our competitors, how can we improve our speed to market? How can we improve our product? How can we improve the experience for travelers and partners? That was top of mind, is top of mind for our leaders and our business outcomes. We cannot drive growth without that. So if we start with that, what determines that? Well, our engineers' ability to write excellent code, to have good focus time, and really be able to deliver on those kind of outcomes that they're expected to do. So if you work backwards, then we understand the question: what data, what insights would help us to take action on that, and then it becomes clearer. I mean, with these data sets, you do have the kind of sensitivities around. It is communication and collaboration data, and that's why it's really important that we make sure that we're protecting employee privacy, that we can't identify individuals, that we're not looking at the content of the work they're doing. It's really looking at that metadata level so that it's providing insights, but also retaining trust.
Yeah, very important. And are there any interesting insights that you've already seen from using some of these tools, the advanced analytics methods, to understand how work gets done, that you're able to share?
Yeah, so when we looked at some of the kind of communication and collaboration data from tools like Zoom, Slack, etc., and our engineering tools, and combined those, we found that our engineers have really low focus time, and that just directly correlated with kind of more challenges in speed to outcomes, etc. Now, this isn't new news. Everybody complains about too many meetings and too many distractions in the modern work world, but it really it helped us to shine the spotlight on exactly why is it that they don't seem to have enough focus time. And the root cause was, that our IC engineers were in too many meetings with fragmented schedules and lots of Slack interruptions. So we armed the teams with the data because they know best how to address this, and help them run behavioral experiments to really improve focus time and those outcomes in the context. The second thing we discovered was, by combining collaboration data with our engagement and experience surveys, we also surfaced that over-collaboration is an issue. Collaboration is extremely important to our outcomes, but over-collaboration seems to be more challenging. So it's really about making sure the collaboration is effective, especially between teams. So when we dug a little deeper into these insights, it showed us that, this slows decision making, and that's because of unclear accountabilities or poor prioritization, and these were potential causes, and they're directly actionable for leaders. So these insights shifted the way we design the organizations and the flows of work and leadership focus for the year to kind of look at structurally improving accountabilities and ways of working across the functions.
No, really good. And I think as you said, at the end of the day, sometimes that there's other companies and other research, academic research that shows the impact of not having focus time. But when you can actually show it within your own organization and you can show what's causing it, then you can actually start getting to solving some of the challenges and improving the outcomes that you're trying to impact. Brydie, last question before we get to the question, the last couple of questions. So one is really focused on your team, and then the second one is we'll look at the field itself. Obviously, growing appetite for data across organizations, particularly in obviously a company like Expedia. How do you ensure that your team stays focused on the problems that really matter?
Yeah, that's a good question because there's so many interesting things to evaluate, right? But it's really about being ruthless. If it doesn't link to a business outcome, you shouldn't resource it. Asking simple questions like, what will we do if we know this? If there's no answer, you don't even start. I've also found it works really well to involve leaders in your prioritization. Creating that transparency kind of also works very well. So you don't have to have arguments about why something got prioritized and something didn't. Because at the end of the day, analytics resources are scarce, they're expensive and strategic. So we really need to treat them like that. Keeping your analysts close to the business and the context in that respect, because the best ideas come from the people in the know and not just waiting for requests to come in. And then finally, measuring the outcomes. We have to measure our own business as well in analytics and the impact, because that helps us to learn continuously about where and how analytics has the most impact, especially as the whole field evolves with new technologies.
No, that's really good. I like that. I've written down some of the things that we've heard: build influence, ruthless prioritization, and involve business leaders and others in that. Focus on business challenges that your organization's got. Measure outcomes. I think that's four great pieces of advice for those that are listening, Brydie. So we are going to look into our crystal balls a little bit. I'm going to ask you to look into your crystal ball a little bit. What's next for people analytics? How do you see the field developing in the next, say, 3 to 5 years? And don't worry, I won't come back and play this to you in 3 years' time and ask you to comment on it.
3 years is a lifetime.
It is a lifetime. What? 2 to 3 years then?
as we, and I've been thinking about this a lot, and I think we need to get some smart people together to continue to think about this because of this rapid evolution. But what I do see is that people analytics will co-lead, not just support strategy, transformation, and growth. And new developments in AI and technologies will shift us from being kind of the creators of insights to the enablers of insights, because there will be a lot more kind of self-access to insights using and decision support using agentic AI. And I also believe that roles will, kind of start to blend, and we're already seeing this to some extent. Analytics, tech, strategy, design will start to kind of intermingle. And with the changes that agentic AI will bring to work, we're going to require even bigger muscles. We have muscles, but we need bigger muscles in data management, translation of needs, buy versus build decisions. And skills will shift more and more, I think, in people analytics teams to data governance, ethics, and agentic AI implementation, tuning that, scalability, and finally, kind of building AI literacy in people, team, employees, and leaders will play a big role in that, I believe, going forward. I don't know, David, but sometimes it feels a bit more like when I first started building analytics capability. 15 or so years ago, and before HR tech moved in with scalable analytics solutions. It's really more about thinking creatively about how to solve business problems, but it's still keeping the trust of our employees and customers. But it's more agile and using rapid experimentation, like when we first started to identify scale and I don't know. It's just a more fun way to drive impact, I think.
As someone that's been in the space for 15 years, are you as excited about the next 5 as you have been the previous 15?
Yes, absolutely. I think, this is very entrepreneurial, and we can really take a four-seat. We're equipped with all the right kind of attributes to help the HR function and the people function, but also the organization to grow capability in this respect, no matter which industry you're in. Because obviously, different industries take different choices and have the ability to take different risks in this respect. But I think we can all be well placed to drive this forward. And HR tech, they just had automatically solutions for us, which isn't half as exciting as experimentation and scale from there.
Well, Brydie, thanks so much for being a guest on the Digital HR Leaders podcast. I'm delighted that we've managed to get this episode out. It's been a long time coming, hasn't it? And I'm glad that our listeners get to hear your insights and on how to build people analytics successfully, in different industries like you've managed to do. I don't think there's many leaders like you that have done this successfully in 3 industries. So thanks very much for being on the show. How can listeners find you on social media and maybe find out more about the work you're doing and find out more about Expedia?
Wow, the best place to connect is on LinkedIn. I'm always happy to exchange ideas, especially with fellow people who are interested in this space and are working at the intersection of data, work, and strategy. I'm not, hugely a big publisher on social media, but definitely love to connect on LinkedIn.
Fantastic. Well, Brydie, thanks so much. It was good to spend time with you this week as well at the Insight 222 event in London yesterday. And look forward to seeing you by the time, this time episode comes out. I think I'll be seeing you into September and October as well. So look forward to connecting you again. Thanks very much for being on the show.
Oh, thanks, David. It was my pleasure.
In this series, we will be speaking to a range of senior leaders who are pushing a data-driven and digital HR agenda. Make sure that you subscribe via your podcast app of choice and also via our YouTube channel for free and regular interviews with the digital HR leaders of the future.